Hello, everyone. I'm your host, John Rayon, and my guest today on the Always Right podcast is Jonathan Pritchard. He is so many things, including a mentalist. He teaches clients how to leverage the power of psychology in sales and negotiations. He's worked with many of the Fortune 500 companies, and he has written multiple books focusing on mindset, memory, motivation, martial arts, and many more. I'm very excited to pick his brain and learn his story. Jonathan, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Definitely. You are such an interesting person, Jonathan. I mean, you do so much, and you are so entertaining. I'm almost nervous to have this conversation. I see you on your website, and I've watched you on your YouTube videos, and you are so interesting. Can you tell me what you do exactly and how you got into this?
Oh man, that is such a huge question. So I'll try to be as brief as possible without leaving stuff out. But the long story medium is that as a mentalist, I'm an entertainer that has specialized in making perfectly logical adult human beings think I could read. And it is a smaller umbrella in the world of magic and magicians. So you've got stage illusionists, you've got the street magic stuff, then you've got mentalists that are essentially a flavor of mystery entertainer that focus on making it look like you've got ESP, clairvoyance, all those kinds of supernatural skills. But it's all just applied psychology, showmanship, and moxie. Put it in an oven for 20 minutes or 20 years, and voila, there you go, you're a mind reader. So that's the entertainment side. Then I took all the applied psychology, put it in a business context, and it's all the same principles, but it's helping business people add a little bit of show, not in a corny way, but understanding how to make things interesting for a prospective client or customer so that they'll be interested in you instead of your competition.
Yeah. And you are very entertaining. I mean, you got the attention of everybody you're in front of, it seems like, are just enamored with you. So tell me, who are your clients and what do you do for them? What's your main bread and butter these days?
See, I guess my main bread and butter is being a consultant for people who are relatively new to the marketing game, where they've been able to ignore digital marketing, maybe their manufacturing or their construction, and they are used to trade shows where they go, I need to shake your hand and look you in the eye when we do a deal. 2020 happened, and suddenly they were forced into pivoting to digital. Well, I was hand coding websites in the late 90s when I was in junior high and high school. It was just a fun thing for me to do. So I've always really been interested in technology. So I've been in the world of building websites and then integrating email for over a decade. So from my personal experience, I then started building websites for my show and entertainment side of things. Then my entertainer friends were going, "Man, your site looks great. Can you design my site?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a degree in painting. That's what my bachelor's degree is in." So I'm putting my art degree to use, building out branding packages for these entertainers. So their posters, their DVD cases, their websites, everything would look like them, so that if a client saw one piece of anything of theirs of promo, you would instantly get their vibe. So I've been building marketing funnels for clients before marketing funnels was a term. So now, all those years later, 2020 happening, it's just a perfect part of my background to help these very large companies pivot into, I don't know how to use social media. What do we do? Well, should we focus on SEO first or PPC? So as in-person events come back, my in-person trainings will happen again, my keynote speaking, all those kinds of in-person things are slowly back on the horizon. But for the past year, it's mainly been helping people navigate the sales negotiation conversations within a digital first dynamic, like doing sales on Zoom, how in the world do you look good on a webcam instead of having everybody look up your nose because your laptop is in your lap and you're outside with the sun behind you. They can't see you, look like you're in the witness protection plan. There's just so many ways that the business of being in front of an audience translates to a business being in front of their customers, that it's just been a great kind of one-to-one comparison.
Yeah. You make it sound so easy, and you look so you make it look so easy, and it's really difficult. I've tried to make videos for my websites. I have a couple different businesses, and I become a stuttering mess for some reason. As soon as that camera turns on, I'm like, and it's very difficult to make it look good. Even right now, I spent hours trying to get my DSLR to work with my Mac, and it just, you just want to pull a Office Space and start with a baseball bat, just going nuts. So I said, you know
Exactly.
what I mean? So on your about page, you've done a lot of, you've gone overseas with the U.S. troops and spoken to them. You've been on Penn and Teller. You've personally consulted with Criss Angel, which is unreal. I would love to hear about that experience. And I just want to know, how did you go from that, from how did you become a mentalist, first of all? How did you get into that? And how did you translate all this together and create your brand, which is JonathanPritchard.me? How did you do all that? It's a big question,
Let's
I know.
see. Yeah, well, I was born in California. I won't tell you the city because then you'll have one of my security questions.
Uh-huh.
So basically, from a young age, I was always interested in magic tricks. My parents bought me a magic kit when I was, I think, maybe 5, 6 years old, and my dad thought this is just a throwaway gag gift. He'll be interested for about 5 minutes, and then it'll be in the trash. And I just took to it. It was colorful. It was bright. There were cool illustrations. So that magic kit really stoked that fire. And then about a year later, I was still knee deep in it. And there was a magician on a Carson show, which tells you how old I am. And I was able to stay up late to watch him on the Carson show. I was like, oh man, this is the coolest thing ever. You can, like, this is a job. Like, I had no clue. And that was the moment where I was like, yep, that's what I'm doing with my life. So that's how I got started in magic. And then in kind of college, I met my mentor, James Randi, who at the time had $1 million challenge. He had $1 million in a Goldman Sachs account, just sitting there waiting on anybody to demonstrate that they have psychic powers for real. That was the challenge. Tell us what you can do, under what circumstances, and with what percentage accuracy. I handled your application, helped design testing protocol that would not allow you to cheat your way in, but if you really had the mojo, you should be able to do this easily. So I saw all the ways people tried to scam their way to the money, and I thought, I can do these better than they can. And that was really when I kind of niched down into mentalism and mind reading tricks, because they were just really fascinating to me. And then I went on tour as a tour manager for a full-time performer who was working the college market. He was entertaining at a whole laundry list of colleges every year. And that's how I learned the business side of being a full-time touring professional entertainer. So I did that for several years, and college students started emailing me saying, hey, thanks for talking to me after your show. I don't know if you remember me, but you shared some of your thoughts. It totally blew my mind. I made a whole bunch of changes, and here's what's going on in my life now, and I have to thank you for it. And that was kind of the first glimpse that this stuff is valuable. Right? Because for myself, it's kind of like trying to tickle yourself. It's not that easy to see your own progress because you've been in it every day, all day. Because, like, I grew up in a single wide trailer on a dirt road. Like, that's my background, and now I'm world traveling consultant to Fortune 500. Like, that's not a direct path, right? So that's when I started realizing that the psychology I was using on stage to make these impossible demonstrations work are exactly the same psychology that I was using in my business to make this impossible business work. So once I started sharing it with people and then started seeing what kind of feedback I was getting, I was like, all right, I'm onto something. So to me, helping businesses is one of the best, most effective, and ethical ways for me to make the world a better place. So that's why I've kind of devoted my time to helping as many businesses as I can. Because if you make the employees more effective, that helps them and their families, helps the CEO and his family, helps every customer and client and their families. So that's why, to me, business is win, 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 win at multiple orders of magnitude and layers out. So that, to me, a good way to spend my time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting story. I mean, you got to travel a lot and learn a bunch of new trades, and I'm sure you weren't making a ton of money at the time, but you got to learn, which is an education. You know? Can you hear me?
Exactly. Yeah, that was yeah, like a mentorship relationship is really important because I wasn't getting paid a lot of money, but I had access to a person who was doing exactly what it was that I would do, where no question was off limits. So that was worth the year I spent on the road with them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what an influence that's life changing. And I'm sitting here on your website with Mind Reset Transformation, and I watched this video, and I'm like, holy crap, what is this? Because it makes you, first of all, everybody's got those lists of 20, 30, jot it down. I'll get back to it later. This is not the time. This is, maybe I don't have the money for it, or maybe I don't have the energy for it, or maybe it's not even a good idea. It sounds like a genius idea, but how many times you have a genius idea and then you find out it's already existing or something? It's just dumb, you know? This right here, I don't care who you are. You watch this little clip right here, you're suddenly like, holy crap, I can do it. I didn't download it yet, but I am definitely going to do it. So can you just give me a little bit of understanding how'd you decide to do this? And do you apply? I mean, obviously you apply it to your own life, but how did you get so good at relieving the blockage in your brain that kind of holds people back? How did you get past those barriers enough where you can now teach it?
For me, it was mainly saying, I'm only alive once. This is my one ride. And of everything on planet Earth, I'm the only one who's living my life. And if I wait a single day, that means I have one less day to create something that couldn't exist if I didn't make it. So I kind of owe it to the universe to spend my time in as creative a way as possible. So when I realized that I'm going to die one day and I won't ever have the opportunity to ever do anything ever again, that is kind of what lit the fire. And anything I think of is like, I got to do this. I have to put energy into this because this is what's in front of me right now, and create it. So that's kind of it. Realize you're going to die and suddenly you get a lot more creative is mainly it.
Amen.
And part of that is a double-edged sword because once you open that faucet, it is real hard to turn it off. So my wife, when we were dating, was regularly subjected to multiple hour long explanation sessions where I'm like, okay, so then there's this and it does, and I would draw on mirrors with dry erase markers in the bathroom because I would have an idea and nothing to record it with. So I just had dry erase markers everywhere so that I could just write it on any kind of glass surface. And it looked kind of like a beautiful mind kind of thing where you're walking in and you're like, I don't know if this person is stable, but it's just more about I know that my mind, when I say I'll remember this later, that is code for, hey brain, you don't need to keep track of this because it's not important enough for me to put energy into right now. So never bring it up. So anything that might possibly be a good idea, I have to write it down. No matter what's going on, no matter what I'm in the middle of, I've got to write it down because you're right. This might be the $1,000,000 idea. It's just that you got to find a way to fit it into the momentum you've already built.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I'm a big ideas man myself. I've got a couple different companies that I'm working on currently that I love all of them. But there's always those people, and I believe it, that say that to really get good, you really should just focus on one, possibly two things, and everything else you should. I mean, you cannot be jack of all trades. You got to focus on a couple things, and it takes a decade to really hone in on your skills. So, what do you say to something like that? I mean, I know you only have one life, and we are going to die, and that is a great motivator. But you can only really become excellent at one, maybe two things. How do you respond to that?
If you were a normal person on the standard social narrative, I would completely agree with that 100%. However, I'm not, so I don't. Because my first paid gig was when I was 13 years old. I got paid $200 to go entertain a company's employees and families for their summer picnic. $200. 2 hours, that's $100 an hour at 13 years old.
Juggling?
I was juggling, doing magic tricks, and did a 20-minute show for everybody out on the lawn under the tree. Right? Okay, that's cool. That's my first professional gig. I've had 25 years to do whatever I want, right? Like, I haven't really had a day job for 20 plus years. So if you run the numbers, 40 hours a week times 52 weeks times a decade plus twice. If you go by that 10,000 hours rule, which I don't, I think you can master things more quickly if you know what you're doing, and that's why I wrote a book about it, is that I've had more than 4 lifetimes worth to get literally world class at 4 skills when most people never even get close to 1. So yeah, I would totally agree if you're talking about most people. But the way I think about things has enabled me to basically live 4 times more lifetime than most people get to experience once. So the thing about the jack of all trades is that they forget the second part of that very pithy saying. Jack of all trades, master of one. Once you master something, that gives you the key to unlock how it references everything else. Because now you've mastered something and you know what that whole process is like. Another vertical, another domain, the details might be different, but the principles are exactly the same. The processes are exactly the same. Once you've done it once, you can do it a second time and it'll take you less time because you're more familiar with how it goes. So yeah, I would agree with it if you're talking about normal, average people who are using the same strategies that everybody else is using, but I don't. I'm using approaches that have worked for people since before written history that most people don't understand, ever heard of. They haven't done the research to know, oh, the Pythagoreans weren't just mathematics. They were talking about all sorts of weird geometry and life geometry. Like, what is life geometry, right? So there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down that I've had the freedom and ability to pursue because I basically am professionally curious, right? Like, I get paid to know things and be able to do things that 99.9% of the human population thinks is impossible. Well, impossible is just another day at the office for me. It's literally my day job to make impossible happen.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, Jonathan. I was telling my wife not too long ago, I said, back in the time of Cicero, these guys were memorizing whole books and plays in their mind, and they were verbatim saying it through or out loud in front of groups of people, and people were amazed by it. But the way he did it was he would just, through mnemonic devices, have different rooms of his house that he would label, and I'm sure you know that, of course. And I'm looking at your book, Think Like a Mind Reader, Perfect Recall, Learn Like a Mind Reader. And I think there's a fourth one, isn't there? Is there a fourth one?
There is. Wing Chun Life Physics. You just got to scroll down if you're on the author page.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Wing Chun. So which book, Perfect Recall, simple tips, tricks, and techniques to help improve your memory. I'm good. Are you on Audible?
I am not on Audible, no, because a lot of the techniques are visual.
Gotcha.
So, okay, just imagine you were looking at this picture that is on the page. So there's a kind of, right, so that the medium is the message, and your memory is very visual unless you have aphantasia, and even in that case, these techniques will still work for you, especially locus and that kind of thing. So there aren't that many digital versions of many of my books. Like Think Like a Mind Reader, the book itself is a prop you could use that does the trick for you to read the minds of your friends. At first, it'll be a puzzle, and then they'll get a little unnerved, and then once you've done it for long enough, it'll look like a miracle. Well, you can't do that with the Kindle version because it physically uses the pages. But that process of making the trick a miracle is the process of becoming a better communicator that can help you in every area of life. So that's one of the main reasons I created the book in the first place. So if I made it available on Kindle or did an Audible version, I'm stealing one of the biggest lessons you can use it for. So I don't have it in any other form than what would be most effective for people to engage with it.
Yeah, makes sense. So what does a typical day look like for you? I mean, are you an early riser, late sleeper? Do you have any hobbies? What do you do on a daily basis to keep your skills honed?
Let's see. If I were left to my own devices, I go to sleep around 4 in the morning and wake up around 11. And that doesn't really jive with the corporate world because, again, I'm helping out a whole bunch of companies. So I've gotten in the habit of trying to go to bed around midnight, up at 7, and then do some kung fu, have some coffee with the wife, check email and that kind of thing after all of that. Then I'm sitting down to basically be on Zoom all day, every day, where I'm talking to small business owners, entrepreneurs, marketing managers of multi-million-dollar companies that are trying to improve their digital marketing efforts, whether it's conversion rate optimization on their website, PPC, SEO, social media, paid organic, email marketing, Amazon stuff. Okay, let's talk about how you're showing yourself off to your audience and what makes them want to buy a ticket next time is basically what we're doing. So it's just a lot of consulting work of helping people find better opportunities by honing their marketing messaging and sharpening their value offerings, really.
Got it. So what kind of what's the average size business do you work with, or is there a do you work with small companies, small businesses, or do you work mostly with certain threshold? I mean, who's your general client right now?
Kind of, if they're big enough to have an HR department, that's usually when they're at a size where I would be able to make a meaningful impact. If it's somebody that has a big idea, it's difficult for them to believe in their own success. So the price tag often is too scary, but not because I don't know whether or not I'll be able to deliver value. It's because they're afraid that it may not be a successful business and they haven't made their first dollar. So I'm not really best at helping entrepreneurs bridge the gap to cash flow positive kind of approach. So if a company or entrepreneur business owner has already been used to investing money in their marketing, I can help. If they have ever gone to a trade show and reserved a booth that is 10 by 20 or bigger, I can help them. Anything below that is typically not at a stage where my time is going to be most valuable to them, right?
Sure.
So I do some group consulting, some group coaching, and those are the places where I can kind of deliver value to folks that are in the beginning stages. But my daytime hours are spent at opportunities that are kind of that big.
Gotcha. So tell me, how did you end up consulting with Criss Angel? Just curious.
Well, his right hand creative consultant called me up, like, "Hey man, we got this national TV project we're working on. We want to fly you out for a week and a half, put you up to Luxor. We're just gonna hang out, talk shop, and go over ideas. Sound good?" Like, absolutely. And then a couple days later, I had a plane ticket and got flown out to Vegas and got put up at the Luxor. Then at 9 in the morning, the Escalade would roll up. I'd get in, get chauffeured to the house in the hills, and just dig in and have wacky ideas. Nothing off limits. Nothing is impossible. Let's do this, and just did that. Then we would get done around 3 in the afternoon. He would take me out to the Luxor, take me backstage. I would see the whole show on stage happen from backstage. And that show is even more amazing from backstage than it is in the audience. And it's because he's running around doing costume changes, having to climb up things. I was like, of all the magicians I've seen, like, he is super fit and physically capable in a way that when you think like children's entertainer, children's magic show, ripped abs is not necessarily the image that comes to mind. So seeing him work firsthand and seeing how hard he works was just impressive. Because then he'd do 2 shows every night. Then we would talk shop after that. Then I would go to bed at the Luxor. He'd have to go all the way back to his house, wake up, get back in the Escalade, go back. He's already awake and firing on all cylinders, and I'm playing catch up. So it was just nonstop. If he's awake, he is creating something. And it was just really, really cool to see what machine he's built from just his mind and effort. So at first, you think, all right, Criss Angel, big name, but maybe he's not all that. But then seeing the operation firsthand was just phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. It's amazing. It's amazing how it's magic, but you still can't understand how it's possible. Have you ever considered doing anything like that?
Like a Vegas show, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know you've been on Vegas. I mean, I know you've done shows, but have you ever considered going full time into that arena?
Kind of, but not really. I have successfully avoided fame. That's been something I've been really good at, is avoiding fame. And Vegas is not really a good place to go make a name for yourself. It's more of, if you're already worldwide famous, that is where you kind of retire from the road and can afford to have your audience come visit you instead of you going to every audience in every city.
Sure.
So without a huge worldwide following, going to Vegas doesn't make sense because I'd still have to go get the audience. Another element of it is I'm cautious of a 10-year contract. It's a lot of money. It's also a lot of commitment, to a single course that, even though it's a boatload of money, it's also very constraining. If I want to change course or whatever, I couldn't because I'm locked into this 10-year contract. So I wouldn't want to be locked into something, even if it was looking like something I've wanted for the rest of my life. I would be very hesitant to sign a long-term contract like that, to be in that location in partnership with this company or production company or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot that's attractive about it, but I would rather take my one Vegas show every couple of years more so than 6 shows a week, twice on Friday, every week for the next 10 years. That would be a living nightmare to me.
Yeah, it'd be a golden cage, I guess you could say. And so you grew up. Where do you grew up in California? But it says here you grew up on a dirt road in a trailer.
Yeah, I was born in California, but raised in Western North Carolina. So up in the mountains, mountain hillbillies. That's my people. I'm basically hillbilly plus carny trash, like in a suit. Like that's me, my background. So I lived in Florida after college, moved to Austin, lived in Chicago for about 8 years, and very recently, to the time of this recording, moved back to the mountains of North Carolina because I missed the hills, I missed the trees, and more of my work is more and more online, which doesn't require me to be in a big city. So why stay in a big city if I could go live around a whole bunch of trees? So let's go to the mountains, North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate you coming on the show. You've been really very entertaining and very informative. And I'm definitely going to keep in touch. I want to read your books because I could always use better recall. My recall sometimes is I'm slipping in my older age. And I really appreciate it. Jonathan Pritchard.me.me. Thank you so much for coming on.
Dude, my pleasure. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed it.
All right, man. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.